Hi everyone, welcome. It's good to be here with Michelle Torres. Some of you, start again. And that might be kept because they like making fun of me. So, and I receive it. Hey everyone, I'm here with Michelle. It is Michelle's first time on Chris's Corner. How does it feel?
It's such an honor.
Yeah.
Although I do feel the weight a little bit because it is.
I try to never lose the wonder.
Yeah.
Of being on the corner.
No.
So
I get it now.
Yeah,
I totally get it.
Michelle is one of our small group pastors. Her and her husband lead a group. Some of you are in that group right now, taking in this video, and it's great to be with you. Hey, before we dive into content, I want to make one big announcement that most of you would be aware of by now, but we made the decision this week to begin weekly services in North Vancouver.
Wow.
And it's been a long time coming.
That's huge.
It's exciting. And so mornings, 11 a.m. right now in the newly painted basement, I should add. Shout out to all the team that painted that beautifully. It looks, I haven't been in person yet, but I've seen the beauty, the white. It's really nice. And so that's happening, and we're just thrilled to be seeing that congregation together and growing. So there we go.
Awesome.
We got
so
to do
that's
that.
this week.
It's
starting this
happened.
week.
It's actually happened in our past.
Awesome.
Which
is
crazy. And so if you didn't know, now North Van's open. Maybe some of you are in the valley, want to drive out there. It's actually faster.
It is, just right off the highway.
So we've taken a good amount of time to celebrate that. And what are we talking about? I should know. I spoke.
You did speak. So we're still in the book of Jonah.
Yes.
Week 3. 4.
4-ish.
We're in 4-ish.
Daryl started us off talking about the prophets, and now we're 3 weeks into the book.
Okay.
Yeah.
What are the two main things that you want all of us to take away?
So 2 main things. So this week, for those who missed it, we're in the belly of the great fish.
And it's a great fish.
And maybe a whale. I know there's this thing of hey, it's not the whale, it's a great fish. But then who knows, maybe the great fish is just ongoing cyclical conversation.
That's going to be a good discussion point for a small group.
Take the whole time on that. And so Jonah is in this place of being trapped. It's dark.
Right.
It's like he's come to, it's like the best example of rock bottom that I know. He's just, he's been saved by the fish and yet he's totally stuck. And then in this space, it actually says in the text, while he's in the belly, he prays. And so the talk was on a couple things about the prayer that Jonah prays. And it's worth noting, I think this is cool, that Jonah grew up not just in the Psalms, but singing the Psalms and aware of that portion of Scripture. And so the prayer he prays sounds a lot like a psalm where he, I think I summarized it by saying it's things he's recognizing about God and then things he was experiencing. So he's this is what I've experienced, God, but then this is who I remember and know you to be.
Right.
And so that's kind of one way of summarizing the prayer. Anyway, the 2 things I talked about are that I think the prayer is a beautiful reminder for us as we look at the whole of it, that we all are in need of mercy, which is a big theme in Jonah, that everybody, that Ninevites need mercy. But in this scenario, we see that Jonah needs God's mercy. He needs his saving. And then and the second thing I talked about is something that Jonah says. He goes, those who cling to worthless idols turn away from God's love for them. And so those are kind of the 2 main thoughts.
And I just want to point out the irony of Jonah asking for mercy. And it's the same mercy that he does not want the Ninevites to receive from God.
Yeah, and I think in terms of takeaways, that's a big one. How do you process and think about that as you reflect on the text?
I'm just thinking that there is a concept of a person for me that's this would, I can see them at church. I can see them receiving mercy from God, but this other person, no way.
Right.
When we talk about, you spoke about God saves the oppressed.
Yeah.
And we have such a huge heart for the oppressed.
Right.
But what of the oppressor?
Right.
And in what ways have I been an oppressor as well? Because I don't want to think of myself as the oppressor.
Right.
I don't want to think of myself as Jonah. So I think that's the kind of tension I'm coming up against. And
it feels like it's really hard to appreciate the mercy of God in its fullness until we actually need it. And that's kind of what's interesting about this moment is all of a sudden Jonah is desperate for the mercy of God.
Right.
And no, the irony, and then there's irony in the second part as well,
right.
the idols thing. Like, you should talk about that.
Yeah. And in the idols, like you were kind of saying that Jonah, I don't know if he's like cognizant of like, that he's also turning towards idols and turning away from God. Like he's praying that for like these people, these idolaters. And I think of like maybe us in the church, it's like, no, the idolaters are outside. It's not, can't be us.
Right.
And here we are praying about it, like, of God's,
oh, those guys who need to turn around.
Yeah, like right now.
Yeah.
But have we turned towards God?
I find the prayer a little bit confusing because if you read all of Jonah, you see him making these like beautiful affirmations. And I think if it just ended at the prayer, you'd be like, wow, Jonah had this massive change of heart. Yeah. But in weeks to come, we're going to find out like, oh man, it seems like he's still holding on to idols and still missing out on experiencing God's grace in his life and in the lives of the Ninevites. And so it's like, it's just interesting to have him. It's convicting for me as a preacher because it's almost like he preaches this sermon and then doesn't live it out.
Yeah.
And I'm always like, oh God, help me with that. But that's almost the essence of some things he like declares to be true and they are true, actually end up going like, yeah, but look at your own heart. And I think that's such a good word for us is like, yeah, where do we hold on to idols? And by holding on to them, turn away and not get to experience the riches of God's mercy and love. So,
And you also talked about like forfeiting
God's
love as we turn towards those or cling on to those idols.
Yeah, that's one thing I think would be great to talk about in small group tonight is just like, what do you think it means to, well, first of all, what do you think your idols are? Maybe you don't want to shoot. Maybe you're like, hey, it's my first week. I don't want to talk about that. But talking about like, what does idolatry look like for us? I think I mentioned in the talk like this, this aspect where, it may not be that, there's a statue or some physical thing that you're worshiping, but there's other forms of idolatry. So what does that look like in our lives? And then the discussion around when we do worship other things and cling to other things and go to other things before we go to God.
Right.
In what way does that cause us to miss out on God's love? In what way does that cause us to miss out on God's character? Wow. And I really think that would be a great thing to talk about. Like I tried to take a couple stabs at it in the talk, but I actually think it's a great thing. You can look at that text yourself and go, I really believe it's a true statement. Those who cling to idols turn from God's love, but how do we experience that? Why is that the case? Why do we miss out on the love of God when we cling to these things? So that'd be good for discussion. Anything else you think we should discuss in small group?
No, I think that's good. That's a lot of things to talk about.
It's a lot of meat, as they say.
The whale versus great fish alone would take up a chunk
like
of
a half an hour?
So make sure you leave room for these questions.
I think this might not be something that you discuss, but I think as well it would be beautiful to take some time maybe to reflect and pray and consider where you need the mercy of God in your life.
Wow.
I think our culture's doing a really good job right now. And when I say culture, I mean I include myself and others that misses too, is that we do a good job at pointing out other people's faults and how other people are missing it and how people deserve all sorts of judgment. And I think one of the reasons we do that is because we don't reflect enough on how much we need mercy.
Right.
And I think when we reflect on how we need mercy, it gives us a lot more room and grace to recognize that others need mercy as well. Wow. So I think it'd be really neat to take some time and just go, where am I not showing mercy? And then where do I need the mercy of God in my life? So maybe that's prayer, or maybe we'll spill into discussion. But we love you guys. It's been fun, Michelle, to do this with you. I hope discussion is awesome tonight and hope you're able to reflect in a meaningful way on Jonah 2, 1-10.
So good.